stay in your lane. We are not the same. We cannot explain. Things about to change. Cause we run the game. Cause we run the game.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Brandon Groce, and I want to thank you guys for coming to yet another New Form community event. If you guys are not familiar with us, which most of you guys who are watching right now are, I'm super excited to have you guys here, especially because we have an amazing guest today by the name of Kristina Horan. Kristina, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I am excellent. I think we're both high energy because one, you just came from your workout class, and literally before that, I was working out, getting prepared for today. So with that being said, guys, we're in high spirits. I've had a little bit too much coffee. Not sure about Kristina, but we're excited to bring some amazing information to you guys.
I'm fully caffeinated.
How many cups? 1 or 2, 3? Where are we at this morning?
Pace ourselves. I have 1. You can go crazy, but then I get the jitters. So started with one strong cup.
Anxiety helps the work get done a little bit faster. But okay, guys. We have some house cleaning items, but first, before we get into that, I want to let you know what we're in for today. We are talking about how to build a successful agency using Wix Studio. Kristina's going to drop all of the knowledge on really where she is today, what her background is, so she can pre-qualify and also just let you know who you're listening to today. We're going to go over really how Wix Studio has impacted her business, how it's impacted her clients, as well as here for you guys because we like to do these things live. This is not just listen to two people talking. If you guys have questions on anything Kristina is talking about, anything that you would like me to ask Kristina as we're going through these topics in terms of benefits of the platform, how she's used the platform to scale her business, how she gets leads and even sells the platform to her clients, overcomes obstacles or objections rather, pop it in the chat. And we are live streaming on 3 platforms today. We are on Instagram and we are on YouTube. We are only looking at the chat on YouTube today. I know as soon as we went live, I saw 150 of you guys on Instagram. So if you guys want to pop over to YouTube, excuse me, as someone, my Bluetooth is connecting to my phone and we don't need to accept that call. Okay. But if you guys want to watch on the large screen on Instagram, put YouTube in the live chat so we can give you an automatic DM to YouTube so you can watch us there. Also, if you guys are at all interested in joining our community New Form, which is about 13, I think almost 14,000 creatives like yourselves, web designers, UI, UX creatives, building their way to success, building an agency, their freelance career, or even just building their professional career. If you guys want to be surrounded by like-minded individuals, type join if you're on Instagram in the chat and we'll send you an automatic DM about our community. Other than that, really, if you guys just stay, watch, listen, you'll see what our community is about. So with that said, Kristina, where should we start with who you are? Well, let's start with who you are, kind of where you are today and how you got there. Let's start with that because I'm sure everybody's kind of tired of my mouth by now.
We'll start from the beginning. So who I am, where I'm at today, and how I got there. So my name is Kristina Horan. I'm the founder and creative lead of KHWD Creative Co. I started actually in the acting world, which is what ironically ended up segueing me into this type of work. So I'm still a full-time actor and a filmmaker. And when I first started website design, I'm all self-taught 9 years ago, like I feel like so many designers, you find a passion for it, and taught myself code and graphic design, and really started like so many of us do in that freelance space of not really understanding the value of the work that we provide, not really understanding, maybe the ideal client that I was looking to serve, but really just understanding that I lived deeply well in this creative space, and started off doing a lot of websites for people in the entertainment industry. I do pitch deck design, so I help producers, filmmakers in that pre-production phase build, a 12-page pitch deck that they end up sending for distribution. So that was very much like the early phase of my work, was doing web design for like creative casting directors, agencies, management companies, actors, filmmakers, pitch decks, all of that stuff. And then it sort of just took one referral where I started working with a female founder. And then that sort of catapulted to me now where I'm at today, being a creative agency who still both serves the entertainment industry. But I would say like a good 90% of my clientele right now are female founders. I'm based in New York, so I do get a lot of female founded companies based here, but I work all over. So it's been, sort of that tumbleweed rolling into the next, sort of focusing on saying yes. I'm a huge believer in, have your year of yes, like Shonda Rhimes says. And I feel like that sort of led me to where I'm at from, having my career as a freelancer and then having that transition throughout COVID to really understanding, this can be a full-time gig for me. I'm taking on full-time work. So what does that transition look like to really set the foundation for building this out as an agency where, now I have a small team working alongside of me. I'm booked out into like end of February for next year with both brand identity design and website design clients. So it's been a journey from, the get-go to being in a much more stable, structured place. And I'm excited to share just the learning curves that came with that, because it definitely was not a straight shot. There's a lot of learning that happened throughout the 9 years of starting website design.
That's awesome. And thank you for giving us like the full picture, because there's a lot there. I think what I'd really love to jump into, and ladies and gentlemen, as like I said, there's 3 chats going on, which is why I'm trying to prioritize on just one. So if you guys want to be a part of the conversation, especially if you're on Instagram, type YouTube in the chat so you can pop over on YouTube and we can actually have a discussion there. Let's talk about that transition from freelance to agency. Where in your mind would you say that exact transition happened? When did you realize, oh, I am not, was there a moment in time where you're like, I'm no longer a freelancer, we are now an agency? And it kind of walk us through what that mental shift was. Was it when you hired your first person? Was it, what was that? And how did we get there? Just
that's a great question. I think of 2 moments. So the first moment that happened when I realized, the value that I'm providing needs to be in more of a structured space of an agency versus freelancing was when COVID hit and I actually moved to New York. Up and moved, a lot of transition. I was like, let's add more to the mix. Was, moving to New York and realizing, what do I want for myself? This is a new page turn. Do I want to, stay in the entrepreneurial rat race, or do I want to try to get into something more concrete and corporate? And obviously wanted to stay in the rat race of being an entrepreneur. So I think that was like really the first mental shift of realizing literally like what is the choice I'm making for myself and what am I choosing to run with. But also on a client end, the client work I was taking was so much. Like I was drowning in work that I also realized, I need to develop a more financial structure for myself on what my service offerings are and really like sit down and crunch numbers and get something very locked in to offer people that's beyond like the hourly rate that most freelancers do. So that was like the first kind of moment for me where I'm like, all right, like I'm deciding on, going for this. And then the second moment for me, which happened when sort of what you suggested, I brought on my first employee working with me. So that was really when it felt like, okay, I'm, developing a product suite that if I want to offer something to these founders that is all encompassing, that is really setting them up from the ground up to be as successful as possible in the next 3, 5, 10 years as they grow and scale, there's more beyond what I can just do. So bringing on a copywriter, bringing on, a team of developers and really like expanding my network to make sure I can support, the founders who are coming to me and looking for that all encompassing help in growing their business.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot to, I'm trying to decide which rabbit hole to jump into first because I'm really trying to, because there's really a lot that goes into, there's a lot of different ways that we can give or really jump into what we're going to jump in today. But I really would love to kind of go step by step with you in terms of when did you, because there's a lot when it comes to a business. What did you first realize or put into place, because we need to have lead generation for you since you work, and also you mentioned you had to really figure out what your offer was. Those are the 3 things I have written down where you had to figure out financially how you were going to do what you wanted to do in business. 2 was what was your main offer, and 3 was you brought on an employee. But I wanted to talk about the offer that you put together, because when you introduced yourself, you said, I work with a very specific set of people. This is specifically what I work on. Is building your offer like one of the main things that really started to ramp you up into understanding what you were going to bring into the world and who for?
Absolutely. So I would definitely break this down into 3 parts. The
Yeah.
first being the first phase I did was locking in my offer suite. So then in phase 2, I was super confident on my discovery calls, which are so just like locked and loaded right now by this point. And then phase 3, understanding when to delegate and what elements of the business you want to, delegate. So phase 1 of figuring out your offer is
Yeah.
also getting really specific with yourself of figuring out who do I want to serve. And I know everybody has a different opinion on this. You have designers who say, well, I serve everyone. But I think when it comes to building a strong lead acquisition machine and understanding who you're speaking to, whether it's on a discovery call, whether it's through Instagram, whether it's through, direct outreach of people, you have to have that end goal in mind of like, who do you want to work with? Who does that ideal person look like? And maybe it's not an industry. Like I'm going beyond like the specificities of saying like, a certain industry, but really being at the point in your process of understanding, like as you vet people out and you have, like on my contact page, it's apply to work with me because it's an application at this point. I want to also be picking and choosing the people who are a good fit for me. And not everybody is, and that's okay, but also aligning with the goals of who that ideal person is. So in phase 1, really locking down like what my offer was. And that came down to specificity of who's that client. But also for me, like working in the freelance space, I, for a long time there, kind of bundled branding and website design because I didn't understand early on, like, oh, I should be separating these into 2 packages, because you get in the feast or famine headspace where you just want the client, you just want to like give value and convert them. So I think a lot of the shifts that happened for me in the beginning were not just literally what's my offer, but also having the headspace of I'm going to lose some people and that's okay, because that's going to get me closer to having my ideal client. So locking down those service offerings of, okay, like I'm offering brand identity design. What does that look like? I have 2 brand identity packages, a smaller abbreviated one, a larger one. The smaller one targets people who are more within those first 1 to 3 years of business. The second one is more all encompassing, also budget wise. They're people who are within like maybe even that same time frame, but usually like like 3 to 5 years, but are also mentally in that space where they're like, yeah, we want to expand the brand positioning, for packaging design, so on and so forth. And then the second offering of website design, the e-com website versus the non-e-com website, both with, the copywriting addition to it. And then the third offering being pitch deck design for startups, for, film industry people. So that was really the first phase. Second phase, it gets into lead acquisition of figuring out, okay, we can't just sit and rot and wait for people to come to us. But I also have a very like holistic sales approach to the way that I like to connect with people. I don't like the kind of marketing that makes people feel like, oh my God, she's just like attacking me. It's so salesy. Like, that's not my method. Like I'm very organic and I don't mind taking time to like nurture. So I think really figuring out in phase 2, like what type of lead acquisition machine do you want to build? What makes sense for like the ethos of your brand and what you're representing by people working with you? Who are you trying to attract? Therefore, who are you trying to be in order to attract that ideal client that resonates with you? And I think really shifting that mindset and understanding like, okay, this approach that I'm taking into marketing directly correlates with the type of person that I'm attracting. And that was something I really focused a lot on this year. But developing that machine for yourself, like, do you have strong affiliate partnerships? What does that outreach look like? What does your referral network look like of, past and previous clients? And then the third being, we all need to have some sort of proactive outreach strategy, but that doesn't necessarily mean like investing in a platform and, writing out 2 months worth of automated email outreach, because people can totally tell when it's automated like that. And maybe if that works for you, great. But if not, for me, like having a more organic approach where it's like, okay, I've met these people in in-person events or connected on Instagram because I've been really, working on building a strong, Instagram account for my business, and organically connecting with people in that type of way is something that I've found to be really important. And then lastly, phase 3 is getting to the point of figuring out, when do you delegate? And I guess that sort of ties into phase 1 of like, what's your offer suite and what value are you providing people, and being realistic that like, as you grow, you're also not doing everything, and understanding like, who am I bringing on, whether it be contract workers or full-time employees, who are going to like serve the greater good of, the value that I'm providing to the people I work with.
That is gold. I really want to dive in because I kind of want to transition a little bit now because I think you set an amazing stage. I do want to dive towards the end, if you're willing to talk a little bit more specifically about what your lead gen machine is with the offer that you kind of just described to us. But I also wanted to kind of just now kind of talk a little bit about Wix Studio, and the conversation might be loosey goosey because guys, we have a good chunk of you. I think between Instagram and YouTube, we got a good chunk of you. So if you also, just another call out, if you guys just popped in halfway on Instagram and you want to watch this on YouTube, because that's where we're taking most of the comments, because it's just hard to look at 3 chat terminals. Comment YouTube, pop over to in the Instagram live chat so you can come over and watch on YouTube with us so I can see the chat. So I want to talk a little bit about Wix Studio. Obviously that's what we're talking about, how to build a successful agency with Wix Studio, and I want to talk on 2 sides of things here today, now that we have a little bit more context on who you are, what you and your business offer, and to who. Where did Wix Studio come into your business life? Because even some people in the chat here, like, as a freelancer, there's a lot of talk about WordPress, a lot of the other competitors out there in the landscape of web design. What made you take the jump into Wix Studio? Let's just start there.
Of course. So, I mean, being 9 years a designer, I've played around with almost every platform out there. When I first started off, I was dabbling in everything. I mean, I've worked on WordPress, Squarespace, Webflow, Wix Studio. It's an interesting story with Wix Studio. So I had actually started, just for fun playing on Wix Studio, but then had actually applied for a job like more in the corporate space and made it through a few rounds of interviews. Ultimately, didn't get it, but they were like, listen, we think your portfolio is good. We want to invite you to be a partner. So they sort of like almost naturally kind of segued me into realizing like, I think maybe agency life could be for me as well. But since starting in the partner program, it's been such a journey. I've been in the partner program for quite some time, and there's always just been the support that I needed, I think, for me to like understand, who the platform was good for, and to understand like myself with my eyes closed in my sleep, everything about the platform. So from growing the platform from the classic editor to Wix Studio, you just get to know the platform so well. So I feel like it's a natural sell for clients when I work with them. Is I almost at this point don't even give them an option, as I say, listen, this is the platform that we're working on, and really focus on, it's less about pitching the platform and it's more about understanding like, what is your end goal if this project went off without a hitch? What does that look like for you? What are the dream functionalities on the website? What is your ultimate long-term goal? And hearing them articulate it, and most of the time I can create that on Wix Studio, is really just saying, well, this is the solution for you. And it's a solution both as a designer, because I know the platform so well that I feel like I have full autonomy to design absolutely anything I want on Wix Studio. Also, especially with the Figma to Wix Studio integration, like the opportunities are just endless. But also on the developmental end, having a good team of developers where it's like, okay, if it goes beyond my capabilities and it's more of a conversation of like, how do we create something custom for you? That's also possible. So I think it's like less on the specificity and like the minutia of like, oh, how do I pitch Wix Studio? And it's more about understanding the ideal client's goals, but simultaneously understanding the platform so well and having those capabilities within yourself or your team to know confidently that you can deliver that final product for them. So that's one part of it. And the second part of it also goes back to understanding your ideal client. Is for me, I'm at the point where I want people to understand that, this is a long-term partnership. It's not just a one and done, design a website and, bye bye, but keeping people on retainer. So having more complex websites also gives the ability for me to say, it's in your best interest to have me on board supporting you, which I believe that for every website, you should always have people on a baseline, at least of a hosting package, because it's natural for there to be plugin updates, platform updates, that you want to be going in and making sure that it's aesthetically and, functionality wise looking as good as possible. Also, we all know that at some point a client goes in and touches something and then, we don't know what happened, but they need our help again. So I think like my second like sort of pitch to people is, yes, the beautiful thing about Wix Studio is that it has two different types of editors where people can, clients can go in and edit the template view, and knowing as a designer to design from the get-go this template for people to go in and edit, knowing like, okay, they're going to be editing these sections more often than this one. So how can I make that, most accessible to them? That's sort of like usually my second pitch of saying like, in addition to keeping me on board, the editor is also super accessible for you, since there's, content mode and, the full editor mode. And this is the mode that you need to go in to make the basic edits if you can't get to me immediately. So that's usually the things I find on my discovery calls with clients. That are the two questions of what does ongoing support look like? How can I have your support? And if for some reason I need to do something last minute, is it possible? Because other platforms can be really intimidating. So I always give a video tutorial, but also like they realize like just how easy it is to use like that content mode editor as well.
Awesome. I love that you just left off on that, because can we jump into a specific conversation or project that you worked on where maybe, actually, let's go with the simpler question first. Have you ever worked with a client that was like saying using another platform and you transition them to Wix Studio, or are most of your projects like from scratch and you've stayed with those clientele? Have you ever transitioned a client into Wix Studio?
Oh, absolutely. I'll be honest. I mean, I feel like this last year, it's been a lot of people starting from scratch, where if they had their website on another platform, it was very much, let's toss it in the trash anyway and start from scratch, both with the brand identity and the website. But there have been people who I've transitioned from, WordPress to Wix Studio. And I think understanding like the pain point of like, well, why are you transitioning? Is it because there's some bugs that have happened? Is it because you don't know how to go in and edit the basic things? Is it because you want, your overall like funnel and back end to be simplified? So I think like understanding where their pain point lies and how I can develop a solution for them that fixes that and makes their life easier while still achieving like that high level of functionality that they need from their website in order for their company to grow.
Awesome. And just to keep it that same client, when they were how floored were they, or basically what was the conversation around how much easier Wix Studio was than WordPress when it comes to actually doing things themselves in the back end? And we don't even have to, you don't even have to follow that line of how I question you, but like, how did they feel with the platform after being moved from WordPress? I guess is a little bit more of an open question.
Yeah, I think they were definitely surprised, but they were excited, because I'm the one client I'm thinking of in particular is a talent agency, and they had almost like 500 clients. So we build it with, the CMS in the background. And their goal was to be able to have like multiple different offices, like their Chicago, New York, LA, all over, be able to go in and really have this customized back end for showing certain rosters based on like division, location, so on and so forth. And I think just designing it with that in mind, they were just so surprised that they're like, oh my God, the functionality is the same, but it's so much quicker of a learning curve than it was for us working on WordPress. So the ease of that, the accessibility of that, and, ultimately conducting like the video tutorial with a room of, almost like 150 of them, of the agents and everyone, really realizing like how much more streamlined this was going to make their business and how much easier it was just going to make their day to day. Because I feel like a big fear in the transition is the learning curve, and other platforms can have so much longer of a learning curve versus Wix and Wix Studio. And I think what Wix Studio like has done beautifully is like developing this platform that is complex, that gives us as designers like that full autonomy to design and create, but also still like maintaining that understanding of like Wix being like this accessible and user friendly, especially like in the back end, in the background, which I think was just like such a big perk for my client, understanding like you can have both worlds.
I love that. And then we have about 2 questions here in the chat. We'll get to you guys in just a second. I just want to ask this one last thing that I might have potentially forgotten because I read the chat. Okay. Let's trail on to this. So one of the questions, actually, this is what I wanted to move on toward. Actually, I remember the question now. ADD is great, guys. One of the last interviews that we had, they mentioned that they love Wix Studio because they were able to hire, they didn't need as high, like senior web developer, blah, blah, blah. They didn't need like super advanced people to hire to put into the platform to be able to make something great. I know you have a team with you. Have you felt an ease of having, or has it made it easy for you and your team to make very complex things, not only quicker, but with less, like, do you feel that you can kind of put anybody in Wix Studio and kind of have them build something interesting? Like, basically what I'm trying to get you to say is, how have you felt the platform reduce the need for a lot of technical ability on your end? Have you felt that's true? Or that's what I'm trying to get. The question is not coming to me. The coffee, the jitters is happening.
No, I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer it.
Yeah.
I don't want to be contradictory of, another designer. But for me, I feel like the types of designs that I'm creating for my clients have a very like avant-garde, immersive approach. So there is a lot of like custom, CSS and, advanced like CSS grid used throughout my website. So I'll be honest, like I personally have not collaborated with a designer who's like early on as a beginner, because I feel like most of my sites are using some sort of, coding or advanced CSS grid in it. But with that being said, I think like collaborating with someone who has already like a medium level understanding to bring them up to like the level of like where I expect the design to end, both, going under the hood of the car and doing it, but also making sure like the design can be responsive. I feel like that time to learn from like medium level to understanding like that advanced knowledge of how to create that is quicker for me on Studio when I've had to teach people. But I think it requires for there to be some sort of like already a medium level of understanding of, design in order for me to like bring them to that next level of how to achieve those advanced animations and scroll animations and everything.
Agreed. And basically your answer is in line with what they meant. Basically,
cool.
The time it would take on other platforms would require a lot of time, a lot more expertise to produce what it is that you've produced on Wix Studio on something like WordPress. A lot less time, and the tools allow you to build those things a lot easier. Awesome. All right, so let's go into the questions about I want to go back to when you were discussing your offer and really how you were building your client machine, your lead machine. So we talked about your offer, when you had your offer in hand, you understood what it is that you were selling. What did you do first? I know you talked a little bit about, your referral strategy, your affiliate strategy, your outreach strategy. Which did you develop first? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I developed and strengthened my referral and affiliate strategy first. For a while there, probably for like my first like 2 years in business, like 90%, maybe even more of my clientele and my income came from just affiliates alone. Like I didn't do much outreach. But I will also say you never want to rely on just a few affiliates. And I've learned the hard way of not doing that. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, differentiating your lead acquisition, which is why it's a machine. Is like there's so many different parts to it. Is having your affiliates, like you want to try to at least have a good, I mean, the more the merrier, but to really nurture that relationship with people, I think starting out with like a good like 5 to 10, and then of course like growing it beyond that is a really good place. Reaching out monthly, showing value, really opening up those conversations of how can we collaborate, but also having really a set guidelines for what that looks like. Because I think like what makes affiliate partnerships and referrals work smoothly is if they're working smoothly. And that requires you to already be doing the work of saying, this is how this works out. You know, maybe it's for every person you send, you get 10%. I send it to you via, you know, PayPal, Venmo, whatever. Or maybe your structure, which I found over time, this works really well, is especially when you're collaborating with affiliates of like the same caliber or higher, of saying like, you know, you can, here's my package. My package is 10K. Pitch that to the client, add whatever referral fee you want onto it. You're already getting it once the client pays, and then you pay me. I think that is the biggest thing with affiliate partnerships specifically, is really sitting down with yourself and figuring out, you know, if I was in their shoes, what makes me say yes easily? How do I show workflow wise, this happens first, then this, then this, then this, then this, just making it easy to say yes because your process is so crisp, clear, and transparent of what it looks like to work with you. Now that's in just like the onboarding of getting them to like understand how easy it is to like pitch your service to a client, collect their money up front, and then sign on to working with you. But also understanding that like the workflow of working with an affiliate is going to be a little bit different than working with a client, because ultimately they are the liaison between, you know, you and the client. Sometimes, not all times, but for a few of my affiliate partnerships, that's the case. So I think in all, like my biggest advice would just be like having that level of transparency and ease and understanding of what your workflow looks like, to make it so easy for someone to say yes to working with you and to say yes after working with you, because it was so streamlined and easy. The second part of, you know, referrals, which I know are somewhat similar to affiliates, but when I say like affiliates, I'm thinking of other people like in our industry. Like if you're a web designer, connecting with other brand designers who, you know, develop a brand for a client, but then they're like, how do we do a website? Do we go on Fiverr? No, they go to you. So that's what I mean by like affiliates. Referrals being, you know, when you work with a client, you want to give them the absolute best experience ever possible, for them to be like shouting your name from the rooftops to everybody they know. So first and foremost, it's less about what you're saying in the offboarding. And again, it goes back to, is your client experience from onboarding to process of working together to offboarding as crisp as possible? Reevaluating that first, because that will naturally lead to having stronger referrals. But then I think like the second part to referrals too also comes with your deliverables, and something that I had added on pretty early on in like my whole package inclusion was social media launch graphics, is creating like a set of reels, a set of, you know, posts for them to not only learn how to share, you know, expand their brand positioning well, since I've curated the post for them, but it feeds into that natural excitement of, you know, you're giving them a website or a brand that they're super excited about. And so many times, and I saw this early on, that I'm like, clients just don't know how to share it. And sometimes they don't share it because they feel like, how do I share my website? They're taking a video that just like aesthetically isn't working. So I think like really giving the people the tools to share your stuff as, you know, a referral, a client that you just worked with, feeds into their excitement and just makes it super easy for them to, you know, share their material, but also give you a shout out too. And then lastly, with referrals, is I think it's that both with referrals and affiliates, I think it's just that natural cadence of understanding like you have to be consistent. You're checking in with people, you know, you have your, as my business coach says, you have like your cold, your warm, and your hot leads. So really figuring out like, where do people sit in that? How many times, you know, a month, a quarter, are you reaching out to them? Usually once a month, or sometimes more, sometimes less, depending like if they're a cold, warm, or hot lead. So understanding that cadence and where people sort of fall into in that, outreach sequence after
Mm.
working with them, I think is really key. And then the third part to like the lead acquisition machine goes back to kind of what I chatted about earlier, is I think really getting honest with yourself. And maybe this is a discussion you're having with yourself. If you have a business accountability partner, and that's something I did before I could, afford working with a business coach, is finding another agency, whether it's a web design agency or, if you have another colleague or friend who runs a social media agency. But I started off with having an accountability partner where once a week we would meet every Monday for like office hours and would talk through our agenda of like what our goals were. So I think like having someone to bounce off with, of really figuring out like what is your sales approach and how does it make sense for your brand and your messaging. And then once you decide on that, developing a proactive outreach approach that works for you. For me, what that looks like is going to a lot of in-person events. I mean, I live in New York, so there's like a large opportunity to go to like events for like female founders. And that's my niche, that's my network. I'm either going to female founder events or I'm going to entertainment industry events. And, I'm coming prepared with my pitch for both. So I think deciding for yourself, like, are you someone who feels more comfortable sitting back and, sending that email sequence, sort of cold outreach to people? Maybe it is. But if not, for me, I like the ability for people to hire me as a person. And I feel like my books have filled up so much more from going in person and really just like putting a face to a name and then connecting with people outside of that and staying in the loop. So I think, for those who resonate with like my marketing strategy, you're going in person to events. For me, like, I'm connecting with everybody on Instagram and just organically supporting them. And I find like the thing I always hated and dreaded about developing a lead acquisition machine was the fact that it felt so salesy and structured, and just even the word like lead acquisition just feels too businessy. So I think like when you really decide on who you're trying to attract and putting yourself in front of them, it makes like when you connect on Instagram or whatever platform you are, it makes the ability to like support them weekly by like commenting on their stories, commenting on their posts. It makes it so easy because it's coming from an organic place. And I say this to my business coach, but I'm like, that's what ultimately how she converted me, was like being such a human who like genuinely supported me and believed in my business and was consistent. And it was so much different than what every other coach was doing. So I think when you really like find that love for who your ideal client is, you can structure a lead acquisition machine that feels so organic to you because it comes from a place of genuine excitement to support this brand that you're like, oh my God, like I would love to work with you. But even if I don't, like, I'm your biggest fan. And coming from that angle is something that has just allowed like the mindset of abundance to come into a reality of the people who I'm attracting to apply to work with me, to, the people who I'm reaching out and starting a conversation with. So there is a bit of proactivity. Like, yes, I'm ultimately choosing a point of once I've nurtured enough to ultimately send the ask of saying like, hey, I see that your website's in this place and how do you feel about your branding? I specifically focus on helping female founders become the leaders in their field, like really also understanding that right time to act and pounce, and maybe not pounce, but that right time to reach out and give that ask. So yes, there's a bit of proactivity to it, but it still comes from a very holistic approach.
I love that. And we have a question in the chat from Sammy. Sammy's asking, what does, or can you recall a conversation that you had at one of these events that, how do you, one, because everybody has a different approach. Like, for example, I'm an online nerd. The interview that we had last month, very much like, what is the cold email in an automated way that you can send out at mass, making sure that we are targeting the right people who have the problem that we solve. I like events too, but I end up just talking and just getting to meet people, and businesses on the back burner. So when you go to these events, how do you approach, and what is your strategy at these live events?
My strategy is to really like build friends and get to know them as a person. And I feel like it organically comes up. So in most of the networking events I go to, if I'm thinking of it as a play-by-play, you're going up to a group of people, you're asking, oh, do you live in the area too? Okay, great. And just like mingling as friends, but ultimately at some point within the first 5 to 10 minutes, usually within the first like 3, you're going around the circle and people are saying, what do you do? What do you do? And my name is Kristina and I do brand and web design for female founders. And then they're like, oh my God, we should talk. We should stay in touch. Great, let's stay in touch. I would prefer to connect on Instagram. And then having a running list for yourself, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, of these people that you connect with who would be your dream people to work with. And then you go back to that list and make sure like weekly, if it's not happening organically as you scroll on your feed, making sure that you're like, going and connecting with them organically like every week. But for me, like it truly does start from a place of like friendship, and whether like the business comes out of it or not, I feel like in so many of those events, like I do make good friends. And the reason why like I preface and push saying like come from a place of being genuine is because even if you're not going to get business from them, they're going to like you so much and see your value in your work as a person that they're going to have someone to refer you to. So I think it goes a long way, especially in this time where like AI is taken over and, automating things can be so easy. And I think there's beauty in that. Believe me, I automate a lot in my business. But when it comes from like a lead acquisition point, the comfort zone that I sit in is coming from a place of being really organic. So I hope that answers your question, but like, I'm not giving like a hard sell or a push at these events. I feel like most times it happens because as soon as you say what you do, if you're putting yourself in front of the right people, it's sort of like going into the ocean and like where sharks are and just dropping bait in the water, they're gonna come and you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is show up as yourself, knowing that you're putting yourself in the position for things to unfold and blossom organically, because I promise you that conversation will come up and you don't have to feel like you have to push it and shake hands and be like, what do you do? This is what I do. Here's my business card. Like it will happen very organically if your approach is similar to mine.
Awesome. Has there ever been a case, like, for example, when we were talking about affiliates and in my brain, what started to come up was sometimes, because this conversation comes up a lot, like, what is your strategy to acquiring leads? But as you were talking, I was like, it sounds like very much you like to sit at, and it might be wrong, but a lot of my other friends do this, where instead of going out and acquiring their own leads, they basically partner or reach out to other service-based businesses where they just don't offer the same services that you do, but they also have leads of their own where they can tack on your services on the back end. And it sounded like that's what you were talking about in the beginning with while you were building that affiliate sort of engine. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So
Okay.
although I feel like in your lead acquisition machine, you should have some sort of a proactive approach, whether it's through Instagram, nurturing, and then choosing your time to DM them and say, hey, I've been following your stuff for a while. I'm a big fan, but I want to open up the conversation about brand and web design. Do you feel like you're achieving the results that you want to achieve in your business? So there needs to be a proactive approach, because like lead acquisition should not feel like this thing that you have absolutely no control over. And it's all about just like sitting back and waiting for people to come to you. That can't be the case. You have to have at least one of 3 of your approaches have to be you being proactive, reaching out to your dream client. But with that, on the affiliate end, yes, Brandon, it's exactly what you said, is like finding those agencies and those people who already have the leads, who are connected to your ideal client, and you're serving as a solution to them too. So you don't usually want to reach out to other like web design agencies. I mean, maybe, but the result that I've found the most, and I know people who have reached out to other web design, agencies and have procured business that way. But for me, I've developed the best affiliate partnerships, and I emphasize partnerships again because I come from such a holistic approach to marketing. Is like, I don't want it to feel transactional. I don't want it to feel like, hey, I'm a web designer and can like fit into your workflow this way, but really more is like, I like what you do. I like the quality of work that you do. And I feel like it's really in line with the type of people that I want to attract and also the value that I can provide you. So I think like coming at affiliates from that perspective of in mindset that it's a partnership, because these people are not just one and done. You really want to nurture these people, because if you get like, I don't even want to say 5, if you get 3 good affiliates who just always have business for you, boom, like, don't ever make anything in this business transactional or automated on like the front facing, client facing, affiliate facing front, where it matters so much for you to be a person and show value in a partnership with you.
Well said. I was trying to dig in. There's a lot more to dive into there too, because I really would love to hear a little bit more of like that first instance and that experience of who, we don't have to name drop, but and also I think we're gonna have to go back to Wix Studio. But I'm so interested to dive into, like, can you just spell out that story? Maybe this is not the last time you're with us.
Oh, I hope not. It's been so good chatting with you. I do this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're both chatters, and there's a lot.
There's a lot. So I'm trying to pick my questions well. So all right, maybe next time, guys, we'll have to have Kristina on and explain like just the story of what, for each one of those different things that she's built out for her machine, the story of her first. But I want to get back a little bit more to Wix Studio here. Is there, out of any feature or tool when it comes to Wix Studio on the client side, is there, from the clients that you work with, is there like if it's 1 or 2 features or tools that your clients is there anything that your clients are like, man, this feature on Wix Studio just makes our lives that much easier? Is there 1 or 2 features you can point out where they're like, yeah, why didn't we have this sooner?
I'll give you 3 and I'll save them quick. So there's like a feedback tool within Wix that makes it so easy to send like that temporary link to the client and for them to like see how it looks in desktop, tablet, mobile. That's wonderful. So I love like the feedback ability. The second thing, which came out recently, is the visual sitemap and wireframe generator. I love that so much because really like the first phase of my workflow is in that research, strategy, and discovery phase of, you know, doing like my industry comparative analysis and developing, you know, a layout that is going to be high converting for that person's specific industry. But what makes it so easy with Wix's visual sitemap and wireframe generator is in that first phase, I'm usually writing out the wireframe in a Google Doc and, you know, showing visuals of like what each section, like section by section, page by page, things could look like, because that benefits like my copywriter as well, for all of us to be on the same page. But usually the first thing that's missing in the first phase is people are like, okay, I get it, but I still like, how do I know what it's going to look like? And it's like, as a designer, it's like, I'm trying my best within week 1. Like, how do you? And the visual sitemap and wireframe generator makes that super easy. For me, I like more of the wireframe generator because it shows like the blocks of what each page and section is going to look like. So I think having that view set along with, you know, the wireframe that I write out in the Google Doc is like beautiful. Clients love it. There's so much clarity from the get-go, understanding page by page, section by section, what that, you know, sequence is going to look like throughout the website. But especially for the more visual clients who are like, I still want to like see an idea of what it's going to look like, you can also, as a very quick mock-up, create the visual sitemap of what each page by page is going to look like through Wix by using like AI and like generating all the prompts and getting super, super thorough. And that's something that if I were to say like of the 3 things with Wix Studio lives like so on the top of my list, because I believe like in the early phases, like making that life easier for the clients to really see how things are going to look is just like irreplaceable. And then the third thing is having the press kit, is having that resource that's just like top of mind for people as soon as they log into their dashboard, knowing that they can like, you know, resort back to like the video that you made for them. You can keep uploading, you know, information there. That's also great, like to share with people quarterly, to maybe say like, hey, I created new social media launch graphics for you. Here's what I'm going to be posting. Maybe you want to do a collaborator post, but you can also add that in their press kit. So again, like I think like it intertwines both like why Wix Studio is great and like how to like even use that to build like excitement that gives referrals to you, is like Wix Studio with the press kit gives people the ability to like tap into what you're sending them so easily. So I think that that's a really good tool to use as well.
That's awesome. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are on YouTube, if you were wondering what the wireframes, the sitemap utilizing AI, we have here up on screen. Basically, this came out last month, yeah?
Yeah,
Christina,
it's recent. It's recent.
it is amazing, and it's just as amazing as Christina said. It's literally from prompt to sitemap to wireframe, and honestly, you get all that in just a matter of seconds, to be honest, and then you can play with. And as Christina said, it's a great tool to get started and really align both yourself, the client, in understanding what's going to be built, how it's going to be built, and then just changing out images in the mock-up to really bring that vision that the client might not be able to understand into a visual representation that they'll understand what it is that you're trying to build for them. So great pick. It resonated with what we have to share.
No, I
today.
really am such a fan of it, and it just ties into everything. Of like, I feel like I sound like a broken record saying this, but it's like when you just make like your process and your workflow like that much easier and transparent for people, it just like will give you clients twofold, and Wix Studio just makes that so easy, and it's why it's been my platform of choice for the longest amount of time, and I love it.
Yeah, I love it. And we just have in the chat here, Chat is saying, hey everyone, just wanted to say thank you so much for this live session. Really been insightful and beneficial for me, and looking forward to more sessions like this one. So Christina, again, thank you so much for giving us some of your time today. And got about 9-ish minutes, so I'm gonna ask you one last question here, maybe 1.5. But what are you looking forward to? And if you could suggest, I'm sure you're going to be suggested. You suggest plenty of things since you're a Wix partner. You're in the inner circle of Wix Studio. So, what one feature would you love to have tacked onto the Wix Studio features list? Like if tomorrow you were like, hey, if we could just have this, that would be awesome. And actually, you probably, if you already know it's going to be built, you probably can't say anything. Paper, NDAs and things like that. But what would you love to have in Wix Studio in the future? Or what do you think is going to happen with Wix Studio? Where do you see it moving, or what would you like to have?
Oh, that is such a great question. I mean, I don't know the trajectory of things. I'm really proud to see. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm so proud to like be a part of the evolution of like Wix Studio from the editor to studio. Something that I would hope that they continue to foster, and I don't ever see them not, is just like how wonderful the partner program is. So I think just like continuing to see that grow, and seeing other designers who are able to come into that and benefit from that support, because I would not have an agency if it wasn't for the support I got so early on from Wix Studio's partner program. That's something I'm super grateful for. I'm trying to think of like what other additions that I would want. I mean, I am such a lover of fostering affiliate relationships, and this is something like I've expressed, multiple times, both to like my, manager, and when we've been in person at Wix. And I don't know if it's possible, but I think like the biggest thing, and you find it with like platforms like Thrive, I think it's called like Thrive Cart or something like that, where affiliates for like purchase products, they ultimately like get a discount code, get a link where they can send someone, like, let's say, like, for example, I have a brand palette template that I sell. And if I wanted affiliates to make commission off of it, I'm like, here you go. Here's the, if I'm doing it through a certain platform, like, here's how we generate that link, and you can get commission automatically direct deposit to your bank account by, sharing this link. I haven't seen this like really done yet, but it would be so cool if there was a way to integrate that kind of system within like the invoices, because again, like the biggest thing when it comes to like affiliates and referrals is like people want their kickback, and they want it, in a very easy way. So it would be so cool to, and I know it's so hard with like custom invoices because not every invoice is the same. One client might be a 20K project and the other one's 10K. So I know it depends, but it would be cool to see like a really strong affiliate dashboard and back end grow throughout the platform to really support like that strong affiliate base, that when affiliate sends you a client, if you plug in a certain code on the invoice, they get, their commission for their finder's fee, essentially. Again, don't know if it's possible, but that's on my wish list. And that's something I've said for a long time.
No, that is actually awesome. That if they build that in, listen.
In a perfect world, that's my dream.
That's awesome. And I had you answer that question just because like everybody that I talk to, it's really just interesting seeing like what their approach is to just their business, because everybody has like a different way they approach generating leads, what it is that they exactly offer, and then what they say they the features that they admire Wix Studio for, and also what they look forward to Wix building, and or what they would wish Wix builds next. It's always just, I assume that it's going to be the same or like equilateral, but it's always like it takes me into another
I mean, as a
trajectory. And it's
designer,
like, wow, yeah.
like as a designer, I'm so happy with where things are at in the platform that it's like the more they add on to it, sort of just like additional cherries on top, you know. 'Cause as a designer, like I'm so happy with once you really start to understand how to design on Wix Studio and you're designing from, you know, desktop already with mobile in mind, it makes like that cascade of when you start tackling the other breakpoints just so quick and easy when you understand the platform to its fullest. And also just having like the AI generator is amazing. I had a client who works, she's a meal kit delivery service, and it was so exciting building her site on Wix Studio because, and I shared this with my account manager, was her website, I wish I like had the visuals to show you, had a 9,232% increase in site sessions. And she messaged me, she's like, I can't keep up with work. Like I've already like hired 3 people after like launching this website like within the first month. And we got a notification from Wix saying like that she is like in the top like whatever like percentage of e-com sites for restaurants that are just thriving on the platform. So I think like just knowing those results just makes me so excited to like continue using Wix Studio, because it also makes her life easier knowing that she's, I mean, I host the website too, but there's still a good amount of day-to-day that she's doing on it herself. And it just makes me so excited for her and for other people to realize that this platform can just like help their business grow and scale to that 6-figure plus and beyond years in such a short amount of time.
I love it. And we've got short time here, so ladies and gentlemen, please I'm gonna try to go through all of the questions in the chat, just so, because I've left them towards the end, so rapid fire here. Anna, I do see your question here, but I think it's pertaining to, let me scroll up a little bit. It is pertaining to, I believe, Kristina answered this a little bit earlier in the live stream. If you wait like a day or two, we'll put timestamps in the live stream so you can go back. But essentially, if we have a little bit of time, we'll go into.
I've got time if we need to go over.
You got time?
I want to try to answer people's questions. Yeah.
All right, we'll leave that one to last because there's easier ones to chew off. So first ones, book recommendations for new designers. Are there any books that have really impacted how you think, what you've built here today? If you can list name a couple, that'd be awesome.
Oh my God. I wish I had book recommendations. I can't say I do. I feel like so much of the research I'm all self-taught. So it's all like YouTube University and, you know, going on websites like the awards, like AWWW, you know, the awards.com, and just like being inspired by other people's designs, you know, also just understanding like a strong foundation of the fundamentals of like UX, UI, and especially like as a web designer, and also because like I come from a brand design background as well, I think it's so advantageous as a designer to really understand brand strategy. So although I can't give you a book recommendation, I would say to like start doing your research about brand strategy, because ultimately, you know, as a brand designer, I always say this to people when they're like, oh, I created like a logo with AI, I just need a quick logo and then a website, is really understanding fundamentally like the brand is how you emotionally resonate with people. The website is how you position that brand in a high converting way. So, you know, I think to become a really good website designer and to continue to grow as a website designer is to also understand the fundamentals and the purpose of like what comes before the website design and understanding the purpose of positioning on a website. So just finding books or online courses that teach you brand strategy from a brand design perspective. And I'm not saying that you have to learn a whole new craft of like graphic design, but understanding what happens in the back end before like building the website, I think sets a strong foundation to like think in a very 3-dimensional way as a designer.
Awesome. And if you want to take a crack back at Anna's question in regards to your offer, so let me read it out again. Do you offer different options, solutions, or excuse me, do you offer different options? Okay, basically, how do you do your offer, essentially? They're asking about, do you do retainers, do you do hourly, or how exactly do you sell what it is that you sell in terms of your offer?
I've transitioned away from hourly. That's actually something that I send like an email every year to, current and previous clients of saying like, listen, we all have clients that reach out throughout the year saying like, hey, I just need like a quick this or that. And I think the power of saying no and understanding that you are going to lose people, but you're going to gain a lot more by saying that no, because you're understanding the value in what you provide in your time. So I don't do hourly rates anymore. I do obviously incorporate, as I build out my retainer packages, understanding what would my hourly rate be. So I think reverse engineering and first figuring out for yourself, what is your hourly rate? Have like a list of what your add-ons are. Like, what's your hourly rate? What would you count like per page? What do you quantify as a page? How many sections per page? And then for me, I have like 3 retainer offers that I sort of can build upon and customize for people. So the first one being like hosting only, which there's no one-on-one time with me. It's just monthly. I will check your website to make sure all plugins are functioning. There's no bugs. There's nothing that's off with the responsiveness, whether it's because the client touched it or it did something on their own. But I will go in monthly and send that email in the beginning of the month to say, hey, I ran a check on your site. Here's what I found. Here's what I updated. I'll be doing the same thing next month. That's sort of like the hosting only package. So that's like the bare bones package. Then the package up from that is the one-on-one premium support. So that's, a higher tiered offer that incorporates everything that the hosting incorporates, but also incorporates like the minimum amount of what someone can hire me for monthly to have one-on-one, which would be like 1 hour a week. So that's like 4 hours total. So I think like also having for yourself like an ability to customize each package, because I might show that middle package to someone and they'll say, great, like I don't need the top tier package where I'm bringing you on for like $3,000 a month, but I want something that's maybe a little bit more middle, a little over, I can afford a little over 1,000, but with more hours with you. That's where it's good for you to understand like what would your hourly rate be that you can add on like maybe an hour more per week to customize that package for a client. And then having your top tier offer, which includes, everything below plus unlimited page creations. So my first package is hosting. My second package includes one-on-one hours, but there's still an additional fee if people want to add additional pages. And then the high-end offer is everything. You get one-on-one time with me, this many hours a week. You get as many page add-ons as you want as new things come up. Maybe these are course creators or what have you. But having like those 3 services that sort of like are malleable and customizable in a sense, but not where you're disregarding or undermining like your own time either. Because as you get busier and grow, we create structure to also enable ourselves to grow and scale. And you can't grow and scale unless you set those boundaries financially and with packages with people.
Well said. All right. So really quick before we continue, for those of you guys who are watching on Instagram, but first off, Kristina, do you have a hard stop? Because you already gave us 3.
I don't mind.
Okay. Okay, cool. In that case, for those of you guys watching on Instagram, we are about to hit the 1 hour cap. So if you want to continue watching, since Kristina is going to be blessing us with additional time here today to answer your questions, comment YouTube on Instagram live chat so that you can come over and watch the rest on YouTube, because we're going to have to shut off. I'm going to let it keep rolling because I think it's got a couple seconds left, but it will cut off. All right, Kristina, let's pop back into these things, and thank you for giving us some extra time here.
No problem.
So, all right, we have the next question. Let me see. First off, I got some people say Kristina is the GOAT. Let me see. Pasquale is asking, and I apologize if I butchered the name, where do you find female founder events, or the events that you feel are the right place to attend based on your customer?
Great. So I found a lot of them through Instagram. It's just taking knowing your keywords. Most people who are building a small niche community of female founders. I personally get attracted to more of the smaller events because it's quality over quantity. You know, you can go to like one of the business expos that drain my soul and there's just thousands of people, and you might exchange a million business cards with people. It's not going to get you as much business as going to a curated smaller event where you can have like maybe 4 really valuable conversations that's going to lead to a coffee date or lead to, you know, a Zoom chat with someone. So I found a few of them on Instagram. Is just knowing what to search. If you're searching like female founders, most communities have that in their tag, in their title. Going on Facebook and finding groups that way, you know, with like the keyword founder. I mean, I will say, like, I think being in New York, like if you're in like a larger market, like being able to go on different, there's like different event apps too. I forget the name of them. I mean, there's like Eventbrite, there's Meetup, there's a few of those. Like there's even my gym. Like I found like some really good communities and leads through my gym because there's like a whole job board WhatsApp chat on there. So I think like doing your research, and it is going to take time. Like I don't have like a quick and easy answer to it, but doing your research through Facebook, because there's a lot of groups on Facebook, and doing your research through Instagram as well will ultimately give you the ability to end up finding out about some of these like smaller like niche groups that maybe have WhatsApp chats, or, you know, group settings and on Facebook and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, like not relying on sitting behind the computer and like typing away at these, but really finding some that have an event, like whether it's like a happy hour or something, and just like getting out there to go do it.
I love it. And we will do I believe this will be the last one from Kimberly. What do you use for content creation from an AI perspective? Notion, ChatGPT, or you can just talk about how you use AI as a agency owner in general.
Yeah, so I'm really selective with how I use AI because, you know, as you know from this chat, like I keep saying, like human centricity is like so important in our messaging and our outreach and whatnot. But I think for me, like using AI for like a keyword optimization, like when I'm writing, you know, a caption for Instagram, I can be a very wordy and chatty person, if you don't know from our chat today. It's sort of just like brain dumping in ChatGPT and like just saying like, this is what I want to articulate. Can you make this more concise while keeping like my same candid tone and whatnot? Make the content educational, make it target female founders. If you're doing this in a sequence of like 3 posts, can you create like 3 different reels with like on-screen caption and like below the post caption that, you know, would work as like a 3-part sequence. So I use AI in that kind of like ChatGPT mostly in that kind of way, but I really use it as like the 10% foundation to what I do, and then customize it. Because I think like all of us, like we're in this space of like always creating, whether it's as a designer or you're on as a discovery call or Instagram, where you can just like get burnout. So I think I use ChatGPT more from like a strategy structural space when it comes to, you know, if this is my strategy on Instagram already, how, you know, would you create a post that supports that? Don't use Notion as much. A lot of like my workflow happens through either my CRM platform Dubsado, which I automate a lot through there, and also utilize like their workflows simultaneously with Wix. Since I still get clients from Marketplace, you know, I have like the workflow going on through there where things automate and whatnot. So like AI automation in that sense. But I would say like my heavy use of AI really probably comes more from ChatGPT, especially if I'm not working with a copywriter, which I think on most projects at this point I am. But like, for example, there was like one client this past year where they internally were doing the copywriting, and I could tell that they needed a little bit more like support and guidance. I'm not a copywriter. That is not my expertise. But I think like coming from like a place of like strategy and plugging that into ChatGPT and saying like, this is all the work I've already done. I've built the wireframe. Here's what I have. Can you like write out placeholder text section by section that still makes sense for this industry? That always helps people to give like a visual baseline.
Love that. That's a great answer. And do you have time for 2 more?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, I keep asking for more and more time. All right, so this is from Andreas. What type of content has worked for your studio page? I'm assuming, Andreas, you're talking about Instagram. Do you have a strategy for that, or do you just post the portfolio? As you are a content creator or influencer or you produce content on behalf of Wix, you're an educator in that space. Would love to know your thoughts on this.
So I think it first depends, like, who are you trying to attract? Are you using Insta? Because I know that there's a lot of designers who end up creating courses to attract other designers. So I think, it kind of comes down to your messaging and figuring out like your 4 pillars of, that educational, promotional, portfolio, and viral content. At least that's typically how I break down my stuff. Is you want shareable content that also goes viral. You want educational content, portfolio content that obviously shows the value of your work, and then promotional, again, holistic promotion that shows like how to work with you, your services, and attracting that ideal person. So I think first and foremost, understanding who you're trying to attract, which will really inform how you fill out those pillars. But the content that I at least like find goes really well for me is, again, like my niche is like female founders and entertainment people. A lot of female founders live on Instagram. I haven't, like the male founders that I've attracted usually end up finding me through like Google or referral or affiliates. So I think understanding your audience and what their pain point is of what you're trying to say through your content. But for me specifically, and I'll also say this, vanity metrics do not matter. I don't care if you go viral. I don't care if my account has, 2,000, 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 followers. It doesn't matter because it doesn't always result in conversions. I've had posts that might have 20 likes, but I'm getting 3 messages through the DMs, and that's what matters. So I think understanding, like removing from your head that vanity metrics don't matter. And for me, the content that I find is like a day in the life, showing a lot of behind the scenes of the process. Like a lot of the videos that have done well for me is if you're struggling to convert on people because they're saying like, oh, you're too much, I can't afford it. I think having that payment transparency on Instagram has found to work really well for me. Like having those videos of saying like, here's what a $10,000 website looks like. And then going through the process of saying like, we start with this, we do copywriting, and just showing like a visual back end and ending with the value of the full website. I think it weeds out the people who you don't want to be reaching out to anyway, but it really shows value in the people who are looking for someone of your caliber. So I think even transparency in that kind of content, a day in the life, a behind the scenes, like high touch overview of, here's what a $10,000 website project looks like. And really, I think like the biggest converting content for me is showing like the part of the process in the final product, or like having those reels where I'm saying like, I'm creating a brand for a retail consulting agency. Here are the 2 brand concepts. Here's what we want to achieve. Which one do you think we went with? And then, showing based on strategy, the one that we went with, and explaining it really also lets people under the hood to like why you are so awesome as a designer, because you are so thought out, and they're like, oh my God, I need that. I can't think that way. I can't do that. So I think like all in all, and then I'll stop talking about this, come from a place of process to show why you're unique and showing your end result.
I love it, Kristina. You give very well thought out answers. Okay. And as you get, the better your answers you give, I'm like, oh my God, the questions keep raining in. We have to cap it at some point. So I'll say this, guys. I'm going to ask one more question to Kristina, but we will have Kristina on again for another show. I promise you, if her schedule wills it, or is open to it. But it's been a pleasure, Kristina, having you. So one last question and then we'll wrap up. Okay. So this question is from Chat. We did talk about this a little bit earlier, but how many months or years did it take you from going from the hourly packages to the packages and offerings you have today, and what motivated the change?
So I've been a designer for 9 years, but I only started my agency 4 years ago. So for those first 5 years, I mean, I was very like part-time freelance with it. And I think 4 years ago when I made the move to New York and I really decided, okay, like I want this to be a full-time thing for me. I have enough clients that I can, step away from any part-time work. That's when I really started like getting into the agency mindset. I think within like that first year and a half, I mean, listen, like I've had my ups and downs of being humbled and having to learn the hard way of getting rid of hourly rates, setting boundaries, increasing your rates, being more proactive about, your lead acquisition. That shift kind of happened for me, and you'll feel it. And there's one of 2 things that'll either happen. You'll either be so busy that you feel like, I need some structure. I can't like take on this many people, or if I am, like it needs to be at a higher value. And also like understanding the mindset of wanting to keep people on long term and figuring that out for yourself of like, do you really want to be doing 12 clients a month, or do you want to be doing like 4 clients a month, have, work life balance, and be booked out for 4 months? So I think like crunching numbers, and for me, like I said, you get to one of two places. You're either so busy that you realize that you need to reevaluate, or the lead acquisition sort of hurdle is not being busy enough and not knowing where your work is coming from, and hoping to God that a whale client comes in. And that's also when you need to reevaluate. Like, it's less about the pricing and it's more about the fact that you're not being proactive enough or building stronger affiliate relationships, or nurturing those referrals in the way that you should. So one of two things will happen for you, where you have to take a step back and evaluate like what part of your structure and process do you need to work on the most. Is it your pricing in order to like have that work-life balance, or is it the proactivity in your lead acquisition? So that's different for everyone. I've had both things happen to me, which pivoted me to go in a different direction, and build that stronger structure and foundation for myself. But one of those two things will happen for you, and if you're in either of those places, it's time to take a step back and evaluate either your lead acquisition machine or the boundaries and structure that you're setting around your packages. And there's not a timeline for it. I mean, I had the busiest year. I mean, not now, but like early on, like I had such a boom my first year of business because I relied on one affiliate. And when I lost that one affiliate, I realized I have no proactive approach to my business. So you will learn from the ebbs and flows of business. And if anybody is in that place right now, hopefully this gives you direction on where to sit back, reflect, and evaluate on how to make that pivot forward to, progressing on to building yourself into an agency.
I love it, Kristina. Man, I wish we had a whole nother hour, but we don't. We're definitely going to have to schedule that next
Bring
one.
me back. I'm ready to chat more.
Me too. I have so many more questions. The more that we got into it, I was like, we don't have enough time. But all right, Kristina. And thank you so much for everybody who came out today. We had Jordan, Alana, Hardik, so many of you guys in the chat. I really can't say all the names. Dustin, really our OG crew, and so many more of you who really just came to see Kristina. You loved what you saw, and hopefully you guys come for not only just more Kristina, but for the more value that we have here in the New Form community. With that being said, in closing, first off, you can find links for how you can follow and learn more about Kristina down in the YouTube description box. If you are on Instagram and you want to learn more about Kristina, there's no links there, so come over to YouTube and get them. Also, if you are not part of New Form and you want to join because you loved what you learned here today from Kristina, if you're on Instagram, join in the live chat and we'll send you an automatic DM with more information about New Form, but also you'll get an intro email on where you can find information on all of our events, the one that we had with Kristina today, and so much more. And in closing, gonna keep it really short. If you guys are not familiar, we have a $2,000 prize challenge each and every month. The deadline is literally the 20th, so we got 2 days. Again, if you want to learn more about the amazing feature that Kristina was talking about today regarding AI in Wix Studio that helps you building sitemaps and wireframes, links are down below to learn more in regards to this feature in the YouTube video description box. And finally, if you guys are on Instagram and you want to get your work showcased to over 600,000 amazing creatives over on Daily Web Designs, make sure to comment showcase in the live chat. Other than that, Kristina, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything, I feel like you dropped a lot of final thoughts here, but if there's any other last final thoughts and or goodbyes, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, thank you all so much for attending. I hope I provided value and helped anybody who's feeling stuck get unstuck. But also, thank you, Brandon, for having this amazing community. If there's any piece of advice, like I said, like getting an accountability partner, but also just like getting a community, and you have a beautiful one here, is, you learn from people who have been in your shoes, and any designer who says that they haven't had some sort of, ebb in business, they're lying, because we all have. So hopefully, the ebbs and flows I've been through can, help guide and give inspiration for people who are currently going through it, because it doesn't last forever. But it does mean that you need to sit back and evaluate. So I hope this call helps you to sort of pinpoint where you need to reflect on.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Kristina. And that is it, guys. If you need to learn anything about New Form, the community, all the links are in the description. And also, this video will be live. It is recorded, so If you didn't get your question answered, if we didn't ask it to Kristina at the end, it's because it was already answered, so rewatch. All right, guys, have a great day. Kristina, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.